Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Brummel and I'm a Senior Product Specialist for Reports for ForNAV. In this video we're going to talk about what's new in ForNAV 3.2. Let's have a look at the agenda. We'll start by talking about soft hyphens and how they can help you clean up the way your reports print. Then we're going to talk about delta files. With delta files you can compare two reports, create a JSON file with the differences, and apply that JSON file to another report. Then we're going to talk about how you can use rich text formatting and HTML support with reports for ForNAV. We'll talk about the new report that we added to ForNAV 3.2, which is the Inventory to GL reconciliation report. And last we will look into how to view the dataset, where you can create an XML file that displays the data that is transported from NAV to reports for ForNAV. So let's start with talking about soft hyphens. In any application that you run on a computer, you run into a situation that certain captions are too big to be broken up into pieces, and sometimes the strings are cut into substrings, and a computer doesn't necessarily know how to break strings into substrings. For that, a technology is created called soft hyphens, and ForNAV now supports soft hyphens in the version of the product. I'm going to demo this in a minute. We're still looking for feedback. We have implemented soft hyphens in Danish, German, English and Dutch. And if you're running ForNAV in a different language, please send us a list of your soft hyphens, or if you run ForNAV in any of the languages displayed on the screen and you're missing a soft hyphen, just send us a list of soft hyphens that you think we need to add to the product. So you can see that in the list for English, one of the soft hyphens is price. What I've done for this demo about soft hyphens is I've created a new table, and this table demo has a field which is called unit price, and based on this table I have created a report with one data item, and if I run this report, and let's open it in the designer, this report has the field caption of the unit price. If I preview this report, you can see that unit price is nicely printed as one word. But what if I make it smaller? What if I make it so small that it doesn't print anymore, right? If I now preview this this report, you would expect it to be broken off like this: unit price with the E on the second line. But instead, ForNAV prints unit and then a connector dash and then price. And the reason is that ForNAV is smart enough to figure out that price is a soft hyphen, and if I change the multiline property to yes, it actually breaks the word into two words. If I change this back, if I reset this to no, then it doesn't work, right? So multiline is a mandatory caption in order to make this work. As mentioned, this is a list of the soft hyphens here on the slide that we currently have, and if you have more soft hyphens or you have soft hyphens in a different language, please send us a list. Delta files. We all know delta files from Microsoft. Microsoft introduced delta files for tables, pages and code units a while ago, where they first allowed you to automatically merge changes into Seaside, and with the introduction of extensions in Visual Studio Code, the delta files have been the inspiration for the table extension and the page extension object. With ForNAV we now also support delta files, which means that you can export two reports. The reports need to have the same object number, and then you can compare those reports, and then you can create a delta file that you can apply to an existing report. And this is done same as Microsoft using PowerShell. So let's see how that works. I have prepared a couple of reports. This is a demo report. If I run this report, you can see if I preview it, it prints a list of customers. And here I have demo 2. If I run this report, it also prints a list of customers, but it also prints the address. So the delta between these two reports is pretty obvious. The delta is the address field, and I can show that to you if I run this first report again, and if I go into the designer, you can see it's a super simple report. It has customer body and then the number field. And if I run the second report, you can see if I open it in the designer that the only thing I've done is I've added the address. Okay, so I have prepared a folder on my local machines on the D drive, which is called webinar, and here I have a baseline folder and a diff folder. In the baseline folder I have created a text file that I've created using file export, and then I just put the text file in the baseline. And if we design this report, you can see that it contains all the usual suspects. And if I go into the second one, which is called diff, this also has a file which is called 50,000. What I've done is I've exported demo 2 into that folder using Seaside. But after doing that, I have changed the number back to 50,000 and the name to demo, so that ForNAV actually thinks that those two reports are the same. If I use a traditional compare tool like Beyond Compare, you will see that the reports are identical except for the timestamp, and here in the bottom you can see that in the RDL data the description is pointing to the binary string that we create with reports ForNAV. What I can do with PowerShell, so let's go to PowerShell, and here we have a script which is called create delta from baseline. I have a variable which is called folder, which points to my OneDrive, and then I import the ForNAV commandlet from program files reports ForNAV, which is the default folder where we install our product. Then we have one PowerShell commandlet which is called invoke reports ForNAV convert, and this is a little bit ambiguous because we don't have an explicit invoke reports ForNAV compare. So you will have to give this the table definitions and a destination file, but the destination file is ignored, or at least you can ignore it, and the table definitions is also ignored. These are just two mandatory parameters for the PowerShell commandlet to work. What's more important is that we have the baseline, which is the 50,000.txt, and we have a path, which is the diff folder, and then we have a diff which is pointing to the diff.json. If I remove the diff.json and the 50,000 that we have here, now we only have this file and we have this file. If I now run this PowerShell command and go back to my Explorer, you can see that we have the result, which you can ignore. I can actually delete this file. This is about the div.json file. If I open my div.json file with, for example, Visual Studio Code, you will see this file. Let's actually close the Explorer. You can see that this is my file, and you can see that I have added a control with the control type ForNAV text box. The name is textbox2, the size is this, the position is this, and the source expression is customer.fieldgroups.address. Right. So this allows you to compare reports and actually see what's inside. Let's close all and close and let's go to PowerShell and let's remove this line of PowerShell and let's just point to the div. So now we're not really comparing anything, we are just looking at the changed report. If we now execute this again, we still get a JSON file, but if we open this with code, you can see that we are actually getting the entire report ForNAV report as a JSON file. And this has been something that you guys have been requesting for a long time. So you can now finally get a look at the complete source of a ForNAV report by exporting the binary string into a JSON file. And of course, if you do this for all of your reports, you can actually use manual compare tools like Beyond Compare to actually look at those differences. But let's delete this file. Let's delete this file and let's go back to the previous PowerShell and let's execute this. So now we have the first div file again. Okay, let's delete the result file and now we go to a different PowerShell command. This PowerShell command is using the patch command, and the patch command is pointing at the div.json file, and now we are saying that the baseline is our report that does not have the name field, and now we're telling it that the destination is 50,000.txt. So now we're going to execute this command, and now this file has been recreated, and now this file contains the report including the name. So if I edit this guy and if I rename this to 50,008 and demo 8, let's do that and let's import this report into C-side. Now I can compile the report. So now you can see that if I run this report and if I open the designer, it actually contains the number and the address field, and if I preview the result, it will actually show the number and the name. So this is a very simple demo of what you can do with Delta files. I think it's a very powerful way to compare changes between versions of ForNAV reports. And I'm personally very happy that we have this, because we always get questions when we release a new version of the report pack. What have you done to the reports, like bug fixes? And as a ForNAV developer, this now allows me to create a Delta file and use that Delta file to document changes that we've done between versions. So this is a very important feature for me personally as well. So let's switch gears to talk about RTF and HTML formatting. We'll first go into a demo, and then I'll talk about what is supported and what is not supported. So for this demo, we're going to run again the soft-demo report, and we'll dive into the designer. And when we are in the designer, we're going to remove the unit price caption, and we're just going to throw in a label, and we're going to make it big. So let's say that you normally would like to add a caption, and you would like to call it foobar, right? Let's make it a little bit bigger, and let's preview this, and it will print foobar. But let's say that you want foo to be bold and bar to be red. How do you do that? So for that we have introduced RTF support. So if I click on this assist edit button here, which is a little hidden, but we like to challenge you, you're going to go into a text editor, and now I can actually, let's make it a bit bigger. Let's make the foo bold, and let's make this red. And now I'm going to save this as RTF, and I'm going to preview my report, and it's going to print foobar, right? So this is very simple. If you have a customer and this is customer requirement, you can use RTF. But what if the customer wants to have something a little bit more complicated? What if they want to go as far as printing HTML tags? So let's remove this label and drag in a new one, make it big again, and let's go into the editor. Because I'm not really that good in creating my own demos, I'm going to w3schools.com, and I'm going to steal some of their HTML examples. So here we have a simple HTML example that if we try it ourselves, we should get something that looks like this. So let's see if we can get the same in ForNAV. So we're just going to copy this to the clipboard, and in ForNAV we're going to paste this. And ForNAV is going to recognize that your content starts with exclamation mark and then doctype HTML. So it's going to convert it to HTML. And now if I preview this report, it's going to print exactly what I had on the W3 schools. So let's make it a little bit more interesting. Let's go into the next example. We have a couple of other examples here. We have a couple of other headings. So let's copy these guys as well. And I have prepared here a notepad where I can actually add some other examples. I'm going to add some paragraphs. Going to add a link. So let's add a link, and I want to add an image as well. But this doesn't work because w3schools.jpg is a local image. So I've actually searched here online for an example image, and I'm going to use this example image from this URL. And I've prepared that. I have my image and I have my example, and I'm going to put that in my HTML as well. And let's see, we have a list. So coffee, milk and tea. We're going to add some coffee, milk and tea to our HTML as well. So here we have the HTML. and let's copy that, and let's go into ForNAV, and let's paste this here, and let's save this as text and see if this actually worked. Let me make it just a little bit bigger just to be sure, and preview this. So now we get a couple of interesting things. We have the heading, we have heading 2 and the paragraphs, and here we have a link, and the link is formatted, but the link doesn't work. This is, I think, important. This is one of the limitations that we currently have. The hyperlinks are printed, but the hyperlinks are not clickable. Other than that, the coffee, tea and milk list is printed, and the example image is printed as well. Another limitation, if we go back to this page, there is a button here as well, and I can demo this to you that it doesn't work, or you can just take my word for it that buttons, they don't even render, and it kind of makes sense because we are not using any of those elements in a report, right? So let's add some styles. We have HTML styles here. I'm red, I'm blue, I'm big, and let's try this. Here we have some styles. We're going to copy this to the clipboard. We're going to delete this element. We're going to drag in a new element, and we're going to add a text, and we're going to save the text and preview the text, right? So this works. All of this stuff works. Let's add a table. Let's go to tables, and let's take this table and let's copy this to ForNAV and see what happens with the table. And see what happens. You can see that the table is copied in, but not all of the formatting is copied because of some of the limitations that we have with HTML. So it's very important to understand that we do some basic HTML support, but as you can see during this little demo, we do have a couple of limitations, and it's probably possible for you to work around some of these limitations by, instead of picking one HTML component, you can just pick another HTML component and use that instead. The last thing I wanted to show you is you can actually take the HTML from NAV and print the HTML from NAV report. And to show that, I'm going to show you a prototype report that I have created together with a ForNAV partner from sunny California. This is a report that prints all of the items and then gets in the HTML table from NAV. And if I go to the code behind this report, here I have my code, and you can see that HTML table is actually a function that returns a string, and it simply exits starting with document type. Then it starts with HTML head, and then I have a getStyle function. The getStyle function actually exits with a style for this report, and then I throw in a table with the left margin, and it gets some rows. And here you can see that the rows actually take some data from NAV, which is obviously what you want in this case. You want to get the item variant code and the item variant description. And then we just exit all of this to the ForNAV report, and let's run this ForNAV report. And if you look at the result, you will see that we get some nice coloring in the report. We get some images, and here you can see that we actually print the result of the HTML in the report. And if we go into the report design, let's run the report again, and let's open the designer. Now you can see that the table has the HTML table from the Dynamics NAV dataset, right? So we do have a couple of documented controls that we don't use, and I'm just going to list them here. I'm not going to mention them individually, but here you can see that we have a list of unsupported HTML tags. Like you can see in the demo that some of the things just don't work, and here you have a list of them just in case you run into those situations. The next topic on the agenda is the inventory to GL reconciliation report. And if you have been in the NAV channel for as long as I am, you know that this is an infamous report. It only exists in the North American localization, I think. And the reason it does not exist in the W1 database is that there was a quarrel between the North American localization team and the team in Denmark. In North America, there was a strong demand for this report, as there is in the rest of the world. But to get this report from NAV takes a lot of time. It's a very slow report. And when we asked a year ago to people in the NAVOG user community, which reports do you want us to optimize, the inventory to GL reconciliation report was on the top of everybody's list. Everybody wants these reports to be faster to execute. So we took on a challenge, and personally I had a lot of fun trying to make this one work. And I actually made it work using a query. The result of this report is that it runs almost 10 times faster, and even if you don't use this specific report in your customers' implementations, I think it's a great source of inspiration, because this is a report that was designed for performance, it's designed for simplicity, and we're using technology that not a lot of people use often in reports. We're probably going to do a separate webinar on this, and I don't have a lot of time to dive into it today. But you can go into my blog, and in my blog you can find how this report is created and why it is performing so much better, and what we actually did to test it. We actually tested it on databases that are 60 gigs of size and have 12 years of posting with NAV data. Just a quick view on the report. This is the query, ForNAV inventory to GL reconciliation, and here you can see we are actually summarizing values in the value entry, but in order to do that we have to put in a couple of filters that you can see here, item ledger entry number and valued quantity. This is the report, and if we design the report you can see that we browse through each item, and for each item we populate a buffer table, and here the buffer table is created, and the buffer table is created using the query and for each item we are browsing through the query report. If we just compare it to the standard Navision report, you can see that it looks very intimidating, and this report actually loops through every item ledger entry, and then for each item ledger entry it browses through all of the value entries, which is why it is so terribly slow. And the ForNAV variant actually runs 10 times faster than the standard Microsoft report. So the last one. Amazing that this video already takes like half an hour. This is something that many of you requested. This is a great feature that you have when you design RDLC reports. Being able to see the data set, being able to see what's sent from NAV into the report. Let's run the super simple demo report again. If we open the designer and see what's going on, it's a customer with a number, right? In preview, we now have inspect report data, and if I run the inspect report data and press OK, ForNAV generates an XML file rather than running the report. And if I open this XML file, it actually shows the XML which is sent to ForNAV. You can also see that behind the scenes we add the language ID, and this is all of the data which is sent to ForNAV. Let's make it a little bit more interesting. Let's actually look at sales invoice, posted sales invoices. Let's say print. Let's remove the filter and say open designer. Let's say preview. And now inspect report data and say OK. So now we should get a big XML with all of the sales information. And this is actually pretty cool. You can see that we have the address field, and if we browse down a little bit, we have the line footer, we have the line's body, and this makes it easy to check if an item is printed or not based on information in the data set, right? I'd like to thank you for watching this video. I think a lot of great stuff has been added to this version of the product, and I'm looking forward to see you again in one of the next webinars.
ForNAV is here to help you with reports. We are ready to talk. Are you?